Okay, again, welcome everybody for joining us today. We're going to spend about 30 minutes talking very specifically about the testing timeline. And I've got with me today, besides myself, I'm Lisa. I'm the founder and CEO of LEAP. We also have on the line with us Sherry Elmore. She is our ACT SAT director. Many of you already know her and have had contact with her. If not, she is your point of contact with all things ACT and SAT related at LEAP. And as part of our team, we have a large group of experienced certified teachers who do our instruction. So, you know, they are a huge asset to what we are doing for your children. So we will take your questions as we go today. If you could please, okay, everybody can hear now. If you could go ahead and please use the question section to send in any questions. We will try to get to as many of those questions as we can. As we go, we will also try to get many of them at the end. But we are going to keep it to 30 minutes. We're starting to do these lunch and learns to hopefully give everybody just a short, very targeted information in a short period of time. So with that, we're going to really talk about specifically having a plan. We had a lunch and learn yesterday that was all about ACT, SAT scores. Today we're going to talk about how you plan. So there are many hazards along the way of not having a plan at all or having a poor plan. It is possible to think you have a plan and not have a great plan. So you know, that is absolutely a problem. Sherry and I are dealing with a lot of seniors right now who the seniors who are getting ready to do their applications, and those applications they're behind in, maybe because it's related to their testing plan. And these are times that they shouldn't have to be working on testing at all. They should be able to focus purely on applications. So if you don't have a plan or you have a poor plan, then it will affect when you can apply, where you can apply, and staying on time. And that's not something, situation that we want any of our clients getting into. So by being on this call today, if you, go ahead, Sherry.
I was saying it also adds a lot of unneeded stress to both the parent and the student's lives if they don't have a good plan in place.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I think most everybody on the call today is 10th and 11th graders, so you are being proactive and you have time to have a good plan in place. So new announced on July 11th by the Ohio Department of Education was that every junior in the state of Ohio will take a spring ACT or SAT. College bound or not, they're all going to take it. Your personal school district was given the choice between the ACT or the SAT to give it in a pencil to paper format or to give it online, and the testing will be in March or April depending on which test they choose and whether they're doing paper or online. That determines that timing. Many of your school districts, most school districts we found are first of all doing the ACT. In the greater Cincinnati area, we know Indian Hill and Finneytown are the two doing the SAT. We know of no one doing online testing, and it's interesting, there's a close by school district that piloted online ACT back in April, and that school chose to go with the pencil to paper ACT for all of their juniors this coming spring. That tells me that their results from this past April weren't what they expected them to be. And our research shows that online testing results are usually poorer than pencil to paper. So the first thing you need to do, if you don't know, when you get off this webinar, is contact your school district and ask them, are they doing ACT or SAT, paper or online, and what is the date of that test? Spring breaks are impacting which week people choose to get that test, but there are only a couple options. So be sure you get that information from your school. You're going to need that. Now, why would the state of Ohio do this? So this is going to be one of the 3 pathways for our students earning their high school diploma. In the past, students took the OGT. So the Ohio graduation test is phased out. The class of 2017, our current seniors, were the last ones to have to pass that. They now can either do workforce readiness skills, which those are our students who are non-college bound heading directly into the workforce, or all students can also earn 18 points across the end of course exams that our students started taking, or earn college and career readiness test scores that are indicated as being remediation free, meaning you should be able to go to college if you have these scores below and not require remediation or review courses in English and math. So that's why Ohio adopted state testing for ACT or SAT. It's actually a pathway to graduation, but these scores will be available to send to colleges with your application. As you're making a plan, here are some of the key considerations that we're going to go through today, and these are really important. And you might look at this and say, you feel like you're lost in a maze. We have been doing this for going on 18 years. Our 18th anniversary will be in February, and we have a plan to get you through this maze if you're confused by it. So the first key consideration is really Algebra 2. And Sherry, I'm going to let you talk a little bit. Sherry's a former math teacher. She's been with LEAP for 7 years, but taught high school math here in Cincinnati for years before that. And so Sherry, I'll let you kind of talk us through why Algebra 2 completion is so important.
Yeah, so really most of the coursework that your child will have completed, they will have exposed to that by the end of their sophomore year, except for the math piece potentially. So we look at the student's math course to kind of help start the process for planning when you should test. And Algebra 2 really is kind of the key element. So we really like kids to be finished with Algebra 2, or if they are taking Algebra 2 in junior year, at least over halfway through that course. Because what we're finding with these tests, the ACT and SAT, there's a lot of Algebra 2 on both tests. A small amount of pre-calculus, but a lot of Algebra 2. As a matter of fact, about 20 to 30% of any given ACT test will contain Algebra 2 and trig concepts on it. So if your child hasn't had Algebra 2 and they get a test with 20 to 30% that they haven't been exposed to, they're clearly not going to be able to get their best math score. Likewise, the SAT, with the redesign of that test, the content on the math portion has become heavier in the algebra content area, less heavy on geometry. As a matter of fact, I believe it's down to about 6% of the new SAT contains geometry content, and the algebra component has bumped up to 60%. Now, some of those are going to be Algebra 1 content questions, but a good chunk of them are Algebra 2.
Absolutely. Thanks, Sherry. So with most of your schools giving you the ACT, the first question that we are getting a lot is, well, should my child also take the SAT? The SAT was completely redesigned back in March. It debuted in March. It's only been given 4 times, and the October test scores aren't even back yet. So we have very limited data at this point. But we do have, our 18-year history to pull from. So I'm going to say it is complicated. We're going to really direct you through choosing timing, but if you have questions around, is your child, maybe taking the ACT at school, but are they better suited for the SAT, then that's probably a great question to email us for Sherry to collect some more information from you and help direct you in that. Most of your juniors, if you have a junior, most of you took the PSAT yesterday, and if you didn't take it as a sophomore, but you took the PSAT yesterday as a junior, those scores are going to be available in your College Board account on December the 12th. And we may say, hey, let's wait to see those PSAT scores on December the 12th and compare them to the other information we have on your student to then make a decision. You could always start with knowing that you're taking the ACT in the spring, and then once you get those PSAT scores, make a decision at a little bit later date as to whether you're going to give the SAT a shot. Sherry made a good point on our webinar that we did yesterday. There's no reason why a student should have to take both the ACT and the SAT 2 times. We may have some students who we feel would benefit from taking each once and then repeating one of those 2, which kind of leads us into the next topic, which is should a student test more than 1 time? And our answer is absolutely yes, they need to. 57% of all ACT and SAT takers increase their score in a second attempt. Now, this is data from ACT and SAT. This is actually the screenshot from the ACT website that you see there. And I think it's interesting that both organizations have the exact same percentage of students who are increasing on a second attempt. Now, what you do need to keep in mind is that 57% means kids who prepped, didn't prep, took it seriously, didn't take it seriously. Everything's in that 57%. What we found is students who take a targeted approach, who go ahead and do prep, have a much greater chance than 57% of getting their scores up. And we here at LEAP take that very seriously. We track our data closely. Both the ACT and the SAT have been very much redesigned. So we're starting fresh, tracking new data related only to the new test. But we will tell you that students, great chance to increase their score on a second attempt. We're going to guide you through today creating a plan for 3 attempts. So let's start with that. Now, the typical junior is taking Algebra 2 in 11th grade. So Algebra 2 is what the typical non-honors, non-accelerated math course would be for 11th graders. And so we're going to take you through, the first question you have to ask yourself, did my child, and we're going to go ahead and take a poll actually. So I'm going to pull we have only one poll today, and we're going to go ahead and get that pulled up. So if you guys want to go ahead and answer and let us know, did you or will your child complete Algebra 2 prior to 11th grade? We'd love to see the numbers on this. So if everybody could please vote. So we're going to guide you through, first of all, if your child hadn't completed Algebra 2 by 11th grade, and then our next slide is going to be on if you do complete it prior to 11th grade. We've got 70% of you have voted. If the rest of you want to go ahead and vote, we'll leave it open for another minute. So if your student is going to take the ACT only and is taking Algebra 2 in 11th grade, what should your testing timeline be? So keeping in mind that we know 57% will increase on the second attempt. Sometimes a third attempt is needed. Sometimes that can just be because kids got sick on test day. So I'm going to go ahead. 25% of you said that your child will not have completed Algebra 2 by 11th grade, and 75% of you said that they would. So, so keeping that in mind. Okay, so we also, Algebra 2 dictates timing, and we know that the very, very earliest college application deadlines are on October the 15th each year. So keeping those things in mind. If your child is ACT only, your school is doing ACT and they're taking Algebra 2 as an 11th grader, your first attempt should be that algebra or that ACT in March or April at your school. Your second attempt should be in June, and it's the second Saturday in June always, on your own. You will be responsible for paying for that test, for registering your child, and keeping open that if you need a third attempt because your kid gets sick on test day or they just need another shot at it, there is an early September ACT. That would put you in great shape to have all testing done prior to those application deadlines on October the 15th. Now, what if your child is taking SAT only? So again, the test dates align very well on the first 2 attempts. There's your spring SAT at your school. Your second attempt would be the first Saturday in June on the SAT. And your third attempt would be August 26th, right at the start of the school year, putting you in great shape for having everything in by October the 15th. What if you're going to take the ACT and the SAT, you're in Algebra 2 in 11th grade? We still say that your first attempt is that one at school, whether your school is giving the ACT or the SAT. Your second attempt then would be in June. Why do we like this June attempt for Algebra 2 students? Because Algebra 2 is finished by then and they will have had the math that they need. And then again, if a third attempt is needed, we've got a late August SAT or a September ACT. Now, 75% of you on the call today said that this isn't your kid. Your kid will be someone who has completed Algebra 2 before 11th grade. And stick with us even if you're the 25%, we just answered your basic timing question. We're going to hit some other stuff as related to should you take the essay portion and other things like that as we continue to get through this. So if you are completing Algebra 2 before 11th grade, that really means that you're ready to take the ACT or the SAT anytime in the junior year. So what would that look like? If you are going to do ACT only, your school's giving the ACT, we would say that in the junior year, you could test in September, October, or December on your own. So that's the one where you register yourself, you pay for it yourself, and that's your first attempt. So really what we're doing is we're making the spring attempt at your school be the second attempt, and perhaps your last attempt. You might not have to test anymore after that spring attempt. Sherry, I'm going to let you for a second say just a few words about if this is their kid right here, what still exists in this time frame that they can do right now.
Oh, so right now, if your child is already past Algebra 2 and you're looking at this and thinking, oh gosh, I have a junior, we should get started, you can still register for the December test. The October test is this Saturday, so that's too late to register for. But the December test is on December, it is the 10th, I believe, and the deadline to register for that is coming up in the beginning of March. Excuse me, not March, November 4th. So you can register for that. We do still have prep classes that you could do leading up to that test date. We have a couple classes that have space left in them that would give your child some strategies and overall understanding of the test going into that first attempt.
So and then you've got your third attempt in June if that's needed. So yeah, there is still time. What you will notice is missing here is there is a February ACT. It wouldn't be the end of the world if somebody did that, but the reason we're not including that on this testing timeline is that February ACT date, you will not get your scores back until the second half of February, much later in the month. If your school is giving the March 21st paper ACT, you really don't have, you only have about a month. You don't have enough time to do very targeted prep. And so we're recommending that if at all possible, if you're on this call and your kid didn't take the September or October ACT, that you try to work in this December one, and there still is time to do so. Now, SAT only, you're looking again, the November one, it's too late to get in on, but that December SAT is the first Saturday in December, so the week before the ACT. We would suggest that you do that December the 3rd, that you would go ahead and get registered for that. There's still time to register. There's still time to get into our class. Somebody asked me, one of the questions that came in is, if my son preps for the SAT, does that cover ACT prep or does he need to prep separately? Our class covers both ACT and SAT practice and strategies and informing the students on test layout. Our individualized tutoring program is targeted to what your child will do. So if they're only going to do SAT and never ACT, we would skip everything on ACT and only focus on SAT, or vice versa. So good question to ask as we're hitting this on this slide. Now, what if your child's going to do both? Then again, we've got September through December on your own, your spring test at your school, your June test. What you notice the advantage is of the kids who have completed Algebra 2, they are able to truly be done with all testing by the time school's getting out. And then that allows them June through October to fully focus their efforts on their college application without having to give a single thought to testing, which is a great position to be in if you're able to be in it. But you don't want to test too early if your kid doesn't have that Algebra 2. So should you take the optional essays? Here's the deal. When your school gives the ACT or SAT in the spring that the state is funding, it will not include the optional writing test. While effective this year, all Ohio colleges are no longer requiring the essay, there are still colleges, particularly it's usually the more selective schools that are out of state. It's a mix of private and public, who do still require that you have that optional ACT or SAT essay section. So our recommendation is the one time that you test on your own, that you should go ahead and register for that essay portion of the test so that you are able to apply to any college in the United States that you would want to apply to when it comes to the fall of the senior year. Next question. What about those SAT subject tests? They are required or recommend at some highly selective colleges such as Ivy League schools, Stanford. And when a college says that something's recommended, you really should do it. So as you're creating this testing timeline, if you are aiming for those types of schools, you have to create space in that plan for SAT subject tests. While the SAT is given 7 times year-round, the SAT subject tests are only given 6 times. They are never given in March. So keep that in mind when you look at SAT dates. One of the handouts that we put onto the webinar today is all the ACT and SAT dates for the school year, so you should use that in creating your plan. Schools that do require them usually want 2 of them, and there's 20 different tests to choose from. Not every test is given on every date, so you'll want to pay close attention to that as well. Now, if you're on the call and you say, okay, my kid's on a 504 or an IEP, I believe that he or she should be able to get extended time, you can apply for that. Just because, though, you're on a 504 or IEP does not guarantee that you will be granted extended time. So you need to apply very early from this. You need to work closely with your school counseling office to be able to get this application in and get all the supporting documentation in. There will be testing accommodations granted for the state testing in March and April. So this isn't just for when you test on your own. And your school will be applying between November and February for your child to get accommodations for the state testing. But get with your counselor early, because sometimes they turn you down and you feel you're entitled to that and you want to appeal the decision. So you need to create a timeline that would allow you to go ahead and be able to appeal that decision if necessary. We have found that ACT will sometimes turn down the grant on appeal, but if SAT turns you down on the initial, there are very few people who win that on an appeal. So, and just a quick word, if you're completed with Algebra 2, you feel you should get accommodations and you're going to apply for that, you have to register for your ACT before you can apply for ACT accommodations. So if you have questions on that, give us an email. We'll give you a little bit of guidance on how to go about that. What if you have a student athlete? So student athletes, really the first thing you need to do is register with the NCAA clearinghouse. Depending on whether you're aiming for D1, D2, D3, depends on how this is treated. We're not going to get into the weeds on this today. It does not, writing score does not affect it, but if you do have a student athlete, you really do need to keep this in mind. The next thing to consider is you've created your testing timeline of when your child will test and whether they're taking the essay portion also, but how does prep fit in? So we have, and we wrote a blog on this as well, if you want to hop over to the Leap College Bound blog. We've looked closely at the cost and the results that people get, and we feel that this methodology is best. So we feel that you should do your strategies prep course before your first attempt, and we know that families are sometimes interested in trying to do a first attempt just to see how they test and then do their prep before their second attempt. But what we found is that often can result in more often than not, right, Sherry?
Yes, absolutely.
In a third attempt when you wouldn't have had to do it otherwise, which is an increase of 25 to 33% of the cost. So you've put in 25% to 33% more money into testing and wasted an additional 16 hours by taking a test just to see where you are and then prepping after it before your second attempt. So we really try to talk families out of that. And it has nothing to do with us and our business model. It's what we found our data shows is best for kids. And, we've gotten a few questions coming in about our prep. So we've got both individual tutoring and classes in Cincinnati and Columbus, and we also are offering it as a webinar class. On average, we've been getting 3.4 ACT points of an improvement, and we would be happy to talk to you more about that. You know, Sherry's full-time job with us is ACT, SAT director, so we've tried to give you some information in this half an hour today, and I know it goes really fast, to kind of guide you on your own of putting together a testing timeline. But we offer for everybody, whether they use us for test prep or not, the free, personalized, individualized testing timeline. So feel free to email us or call. Sherry will help you figure out, based on your kid's goal scores, based on your child's extracurricular activities, your family commitments, if you need something that's more individualized for you, when they should test, and with when they should test, when they should prep, should they take the ACT or the SAT. So we're happy to do that for you one-on-one if you want to get a little bit more individualized or you feel like you have a unique situation. So I would say don't hesitate to reach out to us. Sherry, what are some of the pieces of information you're going to ask people for when they contact you about an individualized plan?
So when you call to get an individualized plan, I'm going to ask you a lot of questions about your child, and I'm going to want to know their grade point average, of course, what math class they're in. I'm going to want to know if they've taken the test before. If they have, what are the scores and the breakdown, not just the overall score, but the breakdown. I'm also going to be asking you questions, and I'm not sure if we have, is this the last slide, Lisa?
It is the last slide, and we're already up against our time limit.
Just real quick, I was just going to say I'm going to ask you questions about your child's activities in sports, because I'm going to try to help you. We gave you a framework for our testing timeline today, but sometimes we will adjust slightly if your child plays baseball or football or has something going on or is in the musical or the band, that we'll try to work around that so that they're not testing during their busiest time of the year for them.
So that's
really just have all that information available when you call.
Yes, and that's really when this individualized plan is going to take place. So, you know, we took the simple approach today. We know that we're moms, both of 3 teenagers each. I've got one in college already. Sherry's got a senior. So we've been through this as parents. We've been through this as educators. We've been through this as test prep individuals. And so we are able to shine many different lights on it and come up with a solution that's best for your child. So we're going to go ahead and sign off.